What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing my spoiler-free review for Godzilla Monster Planet, or Godzilla Planet of the Monsters. So for anyone wondering, D-Man, why did it take you so long to get this video out? First of all, I watched the movie twice, loved the movie, and, well, you know, this is a review. We're here to talk about the fact that I love the movie. But the reason it took me so long to get this video out is because I have so many videos that I have to focus on right now. Like, you guys don't know, but behind the scenes, I'm working on a lot of videos, alright? I'm going to be doing a full Explained series coming out soon. I'm working on news updates, although those are going to be put to the back burner because, hey, let's let Godzilla Monster Planet take the lead. So, you know, basically what's happening here is Monster Planet came out. I got really hyped. I'm working on a ton of videos, and I have a special project that I've been working on for quite a while, and it involves some other YouTubers. And that one, I kind of promised someone that I'd get it done, so I have to start committing to it and getting it done. So I'm working on that. That should be out in a little bit. Not, you know, maybe, hopefully by the end of the week, but I'm not sure. Anyways, let's actually talk about Godzilla Monster Planet, shall we? The movie, I know a lot of people didn't. Well, actually, that's not true. Some people didn't, because a lot of people did, but I loved it. I thought it was just very fascinating. You guys know, if you watched Godzillathon, you know Godzilla vs. Biollante is one of my favorite Godzilla movies ever. And that movie is so slow. It's a slow pace. It's so much scientific talk. It's a lot of politics. This movie feels like a spiritual remake of Biollante mixed in with Invasion of Astro Monster. I think it's fantastic. Would I rank it in my top 10? Probably not. I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't. And as time goes on, I might have some fading feelings for this movie because I don't know if it totally succeeds in the rewatchability knowing the big ending plot twist, which was spoiled for me going in. Although it didn't ruin the first viewing, it definitely didn't have the same impact second time. The final scene before we cut to black and the credits roll, however, I was sitting there kicking myself like, how can they do this to us? Us Americans, we have to wait till August, I think, to find out what happens after this moment. And then we see that after credits scene, and that's freaking weird. Obviously, I'm staying spoiler-free here, but there's a lot of great setup for the sequel. That's actually one of the biggest complaints I've seen for it, is a lot of people are like, why do we have to have a full setup for a sequel? It's like you've never watched an anime before. Like, get out of here. Go... What? It's a series. It's an anime series. Have you really never seen this before? Like, even I've watched enough anime to know that's what they do. They leave you on cliffhangers. They build up a lot of stuff. And a lot of people are like, well, couldn't this have just been a series? Well, then it would just be week to week. We'd only be getting like 20-minute segments each week, and it would still be the slow burn that it is. You're getting the exact same amount of build-up, roughly similar time for, I don't know, like 1/3 of a short anime, I guess. And you're just getting it all at once. I think we should all be happy about it. For the characters, they didn't work too well for me, I'm gonna be honest. I only like Teruo. I really like Teruo, though. I found myself rooting for the guy. I didn't want to see him. He gets put in this situation at the very, very beginning of the movie, and he's kind of stuck, restricted, and for those of you who've seen the movie, you obviously know what I'm talking about. He's stuck restricted for quite a while. I was just like, come on, get him back in action. And then he finally gets in action, and you're like, oh, I see why this guy's a legendary captain, because he doesn't care if he dies. He's just gonna go for it and try and kill himself to kill Godzilla. You're like, I get it. So, I really like Teruo. A lot of people are like, oh, he's just Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. I've never seen Attack on Titan, so I'm all fresh here. I did not have any of that fatigue from that type of character. He felt a little like Yagami to me. Death Note's the only anime I've ever seen, so I saw a little bit of that in there, but I don't know. I thought he was fine. A lot of huge anime fans are saying, oh, all the characters are anime archetypes. But once again, I'm not an anime fan, so I'm all good. As a kaiju fan, as a Godzilla fan, what do I think about this movie? What are my problems with the movie? Let's talk about the thing that everyone's going to talk about. Godzilla is not in the movie a lot. In fact, Godzilla only realistically has 10 minutes of screen time. But that's still, that's around the same point as Shin Godzilla 2014. However, the thing that makes this one different is his screen time is entirely focused in the last 30 minutes of this movie. And this was only noticeable to me when I got up to go pee at one point. I paused it and I was like, wow, we're 50-something minutes in and Godzilla still hasn't shown up? And then I saw there's only 30 minutes left and I'm like, wait, what? How's that even? And then he shows up and he's the rest of the movie. So although he's in it for around 30 minutes, people who've seen the movie know he's not really in it that much. The Servum monsters, Selvum or Servum, which one actually is it? It's either Selvum or Servum, because one of them was a mistranslation, but I don't know, they don't actually name them in the movie. They have so little screen time, they have so little to do. I wanted to see more of them kicking some butt, but we actually didn't get too much of that. I also wanted to see more of the mechs hand-to-hand fighting the Servums. There's one great part, this isn't really a spoiler, where one of the Servums gets up on top of this mech, and this machine gun just kind of like falls down into place and just blasts its head apart. It's awesome. I loved it. I don't know. I think there's a lot to love about this movie, but there's also, like I said, there's kind of some problems with it. I didn't like any of the characters outside of Haruo. Mephes, the only other main character, the alien, kind of throwaway. Like you really just kind of like this religious cult leader from an alien planet. Like whatever, I don't really care. I felt like there was a lot of interesting stuff going on with the alien society, but we didn't get enough time to have all that fleshed out. In fact, the beginning of this movie does this little montage about the history of Earth. I think that should have been its own movie about this whole setup, humans just getting annihilated by monsters. That's when in the last 30 minutes of the movie you have Godzilla show up, clean slate. You hear on the radio, if you listen closely, and I will be doing a breakdown for this movie a lot sooner than I did for Shin Godzilla, you hear on the radio, they're like, oh, this monster showed up and killed Rodan or whatever, and you're like, oh shoot, what is this monster? And then it's Godzilla, and he's just, he just destroys everything, and then humans have to abandon Earth. I think the last shot of the movie should have been Haruo and his grandpa leaving Earth after his family's killed. Again, not a spoiler, in the trailer. If it's in the trailer, I find it to be fair game. Anyone's like, dude, I didn't watch the trailers just to avoid that spoiler. I don't know what to tell you. If Toho feels it's fine to release, I feel it's fine to release. That's just the way I view it. Although I guess I get it with like Sony sucks with trailers. I'm kind of all over the place in this review. It's okay, it's a reaction review. It's not my official spoiler review. I'm totally fine being all over the place. Okay, so I think the last shot of this movie should have been Haruo shooting off into space. You're like, oh, are they gonna find a new planet? Obviously not. There's got to be a sequel. Then the next movie comes out 20 years later. Boom, we have this movie. That would have been my ideal way to do it and just have it be a 4-parter and not a 3-parter. But I'll take what I can get. This movie I think is pretty good regardless. So the other problems with it that I have, other than the characters and not enough world building, are the pacing actually didn't bother me. Like, I never noticed it. I never noticed how slow the movie was, because it always had me entertained. The other problems would be, I guess, the English dub I don't like. I freaking hate the Haruo voice. But that's I'm gonna talk about the Japanese. I'm just gonna stick to the Japanese dub, because that's the one I watched first. The subtitles move a bit too quick, and sometimes Netflix subtitles kind of suck, so you're sitting there and they're talking and nothing's on screen, and then the subtitles will pop up for like 2 seconds and then go away into the next set, and you're like, whoa, I didn't even get time to read that. What's happening? This was one of the first Godzilla movies I've watched in forever that I actually had to sit there and backtrack to be like, what did he say? I need to read that again because I missed it. And some people are like, oh, that's when you watch the English dub, because then you can avoid problems. I don't like to read my way through movies. If I wanted to read, I'd get a book. Okay, here's the thing. I dislike the English dubs almost all the time, so I stick with the Japanese cut, and if there's a problem with the subtitles, I have to address it. Some people are like, wow, he's been really mean to English dub fans. I'm not. I love you guys, but, you know, I've gotten the comments on Godzilla-thons for the past year, so... The music really grew on me. In a previous video, you heard me talk about it. I was like, I don't know, they do this weird thing where sometimes it's techno, sometimes it's orchestral. It doesn't work. I don't like the music except for like one song. Now we're sitting here and it's kind of the opposite. It's like, I love the music. I still dislike the switch between orchestral and techno. Just pick one or the other. Orchestral. So, anytime a techno song kicks on, like Mephi's theme I'm not big on it. But the orchestral songs, Godzilla's theme, that's also sort of techno, but that's more orchestral than some of them. Any of the military marches, so subspace navigation, speech, and Commander. I don't know why they put it in the title of the song, Blank's Sacrifice, because I knew he was going to die watching the movie, especially when that song kicked on, and I was like, oh shoot, this is literally the song called Blank's Suicide Attack. Why would they do that? So, there you go. As for people saying, D-Man, how'd you get the soundtrack? That's a good question. How did I get the soundtrack? I got it, but it was in about an hour and a half long block, and then I had to take it and put it into my FL Studio and break it bit by bit. So I had to break each song. I had to go on the official wiki page, find the official names. I had to go in, add the composers, add the release date, add all the information, sequence it all, render it all. I wasted a full day doing that. But now I have it on my iPod. I jam out to that like every day I'm driving to school. So there you go. Now you're like, what does D-Man listen to on the radio? I don't listen to the radio. I jam out to Godzilla Monster Planet soundtrack. That's what I've been doing lately. I think it's awesome. So, like I said, the military marches really, they shine. As for the soundtrack as a whole, I wouldn't say it's one of the best. It's definitely the best of this composer. You've heard me complain about Hattori's composing before, saying, it's too techno-heavy, or for Space Godzilla, it was just boring. But for this movie, I think he really does a good job ramping it up, keeping the action going. Godzilla's theme it's not a Fukube. It will never be a Fukube. This guy can't be a Fukube. He's not as good. And that's why I've always been saying for the past ever, they should have gotten the composer from Tokyo SOS, because she is awesome. However, I don't know. This movie, I think, has a very distinct feel, and I think this soundtrack really fits that. The music isn't used as epically as I wanted it to. Like, you watch Shin Godzilla, the music is blaring, you're really in it. This movie, however, it's a lot more mellow. It's a lot more in the background. It doesn't come out too much. They don't even play the full songs of most songs. I guess Shin Godzilla kind of did that too, but they only shortened it a little bit. This movie really shortens them. Godzilla, like I said earlier, not too much to do in this movie. His presence is felt the whole time, which is something I talk a lot about in Godzilla-thon. That's one thing that can save a movie for me. If Godzilla's only in it for like 5 to 10 minutes, that's totally fine, just as long as his presence is felt the entire film. A great example of that would be Biollante. You're like, oh shoot, Godzilla's in this world running around. And that movie also has one of the best Godzilla destruction scenes ever, but still, when he's not on screen, you still feel it. You're like, oh, darn. Shin Godzilla, the whole time, you're like, go, Godzilla's here. That's my problem with 2014. I didn't have a problem with the screen time. Godzilla 2014, I thought had enough screen time to satisfy. The problem was you didn't feel his presence all the way through the film like I felt you should have. This movie, however, you start out with a flashback. Haruo is like, yeah, this thing is huge. It destroyed everything. It kills anything in its path. It killed my parents. We abandoned the planet. It's that you see him. You see a little bit of Godzilla in flashbacks at the airport that we saw in the trailers, and then he's like, but now we got to go back and kill it. And I think the whole thing about Haruo being the only one to know how to, has this theory that can kill Godzilla. He's like, I think I know how to kill him. And everyone else is like, oh, what? I'm not trying to get into spoilers here, so I had to shorten the dialogue a little bit. But I think that's all kind of, it's not groundbreaking or anything. It's all right. As for other stuff, what other stuff is there? I talked about Servums. I talked about Godzilla. Biggest Godzilla ever. You don't really get a sense of that until the last 2 minutes of the movie. People who've seen the movie know why, but you don't really feel it until the very end. I think a big component to that is even though people who've seen the movie really do know what I'm talking about here, a big component to that is Godzilla just doesn't appear next to anything recognizable. If he was standing next to buildings, you'd be like, wow, like those buildings don't even come up to his knees. But he doesn't stand next to buildings. He stands in a mountain. He stands in a mountain range, in a valley of all things, so he looks even shorter than he actually is. That's an interesting choice. That's just one of the flaws with setting the movie 20,000 years in the future, which I like the way they come to that realization in the movie when they're like, oh shoot, we totally underestimated how long we've been gone. When you see these buildings, but they're not actually buildings, they're just plants that have grown into the shape of buildings. They're like, what the? That's a cool scene. Spoilers, maybe? Spoiler-free review, shouldn't say that, maybe. Either way, you never see Godzilla interact with anything that can really scale him. The final scene of the movie, you do get a sense of, oh, this is the biggest Godzilla ever, but other than that, you don't even really get a sense of how big Godzilla is at all. You're like, is he the smallest Godzilla ever? Is he normal size? Like, what's happening? You don't really know. And really, I have to be kind of cryptic here when I'm talking. This is a restraint I put on myself. I don't know why I did a spoiler-free review. Honestly, the movie's out on Netflix. It's free for anyone who has Netflix. It's going to be wide access. Spoilers have been out there for months since it came out in Japan. I'm doing it as a courtesy thing and because it's tradition. What else is there to talk about? We talked about the music, talked about Godzilla, talked about Servum, talking about characters. What about the animation and special effects? No special effects, just animation. The animation, I thought I was going to have a problem with it. I thought I was going to be like, oh, this is boring, this is not, it's not live action. Godzilla can only work in live action. This movie really proves to me that's not true. Godzilla can work in whatever platform you put him in. Actually, the comic books behind me, they really did a good job proving that too. I love reading Godzilla comics. Godzilla Rulers of Earth inspired me to become a writer. That one and some other comics like Walking Dead. This movie, I think it works. I think, you can do Godzilla in animation and still have him feel menacing. I don't think it has the same effect as if he was on screen live action. Sometimes the animation gets a little convoluted and you can't tell what you're looking at. That's a problem. And sometimes faces aren't that well detailed, especially when you compare to their clothes. Their clothes are really withered, and I think Kaiju Noir talked about this, but when you look at their clothes compared to their faces, they're two totally different versions of detail. Like their clothes really detailed, their faces not detailed, their hair sometimes really detailed, sometimes it's not. It's kind of awkward. Haruo usually looks pretty fantastic in this movie. The animation whenever he's on screen is pretty good. However, it's whenever you see all these extras and everything else, it just doesn't look that great. And Godzilla doesn't look that defined until the last little portion of the movie, and then you really start to see some intricate details with Godzilla, and that is intentional, but I still don't think it's a great choice because you're just looking at this kind of bland, sleek Godzilla the whole time, and you're waiting for him to start to look more like he does in the trailers. And you rarely get to see anything like that until the last little bit of the movie. As for the plot, I wouldn't say it's generic like a lot of people. In fact, I think it's far from it. It's very fascinating for a Godzilla movie. It's nothing we've ever seen before. We rarely see the aliens as good guys. I think that's a great addition to the series. The whole coming back to from the future 20,000 years later, it's a really cool thing. Godzilla having aged and grown to be this massive size. Really interesting, them having to take him down. This movie kind of being a somewhat spiritual remake of Biollante, Invasion of Astro Monster, and Godzilla Raids Again. I think all these aspects come together to create a very interesting movie, and that's the best way I can describe this movie. I can't describe it as fun because I can't say when I was sitting there I was like having a thrill ride like I was with Kong Skull Island, and I can't say it's necessarily as emotional as Shin Godzilla when I was sitting there and I was like I could feel the weight of the situation. This one was more of just interesting. It's the best way to put it. It's a scientific movie, and it puts you in kind of a scientific mindset. Shin Godzilla is a political movie. It's an emotional movie. It puts you in an emotional, political mindset. Those things shouldn't go together, but they often do. Godzilla 2014 puts you in a very emotional and intense mindset. This movie just keeps you kind of scientifically grounded and intrigued the whole time. And Godzilla's new biology, it's not totally explained like a lot of fans want it to be, and I actually prefer the way they did it with not explaining it too much. But I find it to be very intriguing. I was sitting there along with the characters trying to figure things out and enjoying the process of figuring things out. Overall, guys, I think Godzilla Monster Planet was a success. I don't think it necessarily was as good as any of the past Godzilla movies to have come out within the past 10 years. So really only 2. I don't think it was as good as Shin Godzilla or Godzilla 2014. And I'm not going to do a video comparing them because that's just ridiculous. So let's just leave it with, I thought that both Godzilla 2014 and Shin Godzilla were better. However, I think this movie does promise on the horizon for an even better movie. I think the sequel is going to be killer. Some people are like, well, why do I have to... I don't want to watch a full movie setting up for the sequel. This isn't. This can work on its own, sort of. The last little bit definitely leaves you on a big cliffhanger. But, I mean, TV shows, movies have left us on cliffhangers forever before. That's just where they end for good. It's not like this would be the first time that's ever happened. I think this movie does a good job setting up for a sequel, but I don't think the sequel is 100% necessary. If I didn't get the sequel, would I be mad? Yeah, a little bit. That's like if I don't get the Shin Godzilla sequel, I'm going to be mad they left us on a cliffhanger there too. Ultimately, I think this movie could stand on its own, and I don't think a lot of other people believe that. So I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say down below. Godzilla Monster Planet. I'm not going to rate it here, however, I will say I did find it to be a very good movie. As for the spoiler review, of course I will be doing 2 spoiler reviews. One of them won't be really a spoiler review. It will just kind of be in the form of the Godzilla Explained series that will be coming out in relation to this movie, where I'm going to really break down every aspect that I felt had some questions that either I had to ask or I've seen online, and I'll really do a good job, or the best job I can possibly do, trying to answer these questions. That will serve as sort of my pseudo-spoiler review for this movie up until about a month from now when I do my Godzilla-thon. What do you say? Return to Godzilla-thon when I do that for Godzilla Monster Planet. And if you're like, why don't you just do Godzilla Monster Planet Godzilla-thon right away and just get the 1-hour review over with? We know it's coming anyways. The reason I'm not going to do that is because I want to watch the movie like 1,000 times before I make a Godzilla-thon. I always wait to make big reviews on movies like that, like Frankenstein Conquers the World. I watched it 2 years ago, or a year ago, I guess. I don't know. I watched it back in 2016. And I'm still sitting here waiting to watch it over and over and over again so that I can, put together a big review that will come out, and then War of the Gargantuas will follow. That'll be its own a-thon series for Showa Toho movies. I won't take that long with Monster Planet, obviously. It's going to come out in like a month. I just plan on watching this movie a couple more times in Japanese, definitely at least once more in English, despite me not totally liking the Haruo voice. They should have picked me. But I'm definitely going to watch this movie quite a few more times in Japanese so that I can really absorb it all. And then I'll make my big Godzilla-thon review. Plus, it takes a really long time to draw those pictures for Godzilla-thon, and I haven't even started on the Monster Planet picture. I'm like making progress on Kong-a-thon. I just watched Kong 33. I have a whole bunch of the art done, which is super, super relieving for me. I'm way ahead of the game on this. I have Kong, the first one, watched. I'm gonna make my review pretty soon, and then probably, just kind of like a side announcement here, probably for Kong-a-thon, what I'll do is I'll wait for my next school year to start, so that'll be the 2018-2019 school year. The second that starts up, Kong-a-thon will start up, and maybe Gamerathon will follow directly, or maybe I'll take a little bit of time off for Gamerathon, because I still don't own all the Gamera movies. We'll see. At the very least, I think what I'm going to do is wait until next school year for Kong-a-thon, unless I manage to get them all done and have enough time to upload all of them before this school year ends, which I don't totally think is going to happen because I do them weekly instead of daily. So what might happen is I record them all, but I'm too short I'm like very short on time, so I only have like 2 weeks before the school year's over. I'm not going to upload the first 2 episodes and then wait months to upload the next ones. I'll just wait to upload the first 2 then. And for people who are like, why not just upload over the summer? Godzillathon and Kongathon are supposed to be my one constant to keep me grounded throughout the year so that I can upload these videos and at least have something on the channel for you guys. This is totally not Monster Planet related, but sorry. Point is, it's a school year thing for me. It's a school year project for me. Anyways, guys, Godzilla Monster Planet, it's a good movie. Go check it out so that you can enjoy my Godzilla Explained series, which I will be getting to work on directly after I do homework and go to bed and then wake up tomorrow. So there you go, guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you guys next time. D-Man. Also, wait a minute. First of all, tell me what you guys think about Godzilla Monster Planet. Tell me in the comments down below. I'm interested to see, because so far I've seen a lot of people who are rating it like 7s to 8s out of 10. They find it to be a good movie, and then there's some people who are like, best Godzilla movie ever! And then there's some people who are like, it's trash because it's not Godzilla 2014. I would have liked if they had shown Haru's family life, and then maybe like his mom dies, and then we cut a little bit in the future, and like Haru is like this soldier, and like maybe his dad is kind of crazy, and his dad dies, and then he has to get back to Haru has to get back to his wife, or like then the Mutos are gonna take over the world. But there's no Mutos in this movie, so I guess it'd have to be the Servum. But the Servum didn't really do much, so ultimately this movie just kind of sucks because it's not Godzilla 2014. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you guys next time. D-Man, out.